It's hour 2 of Overdrive here on TSN4, TSN 1050, the iHeart Radio app. I'm Aaron Korolnek, and for Brian Hayes, Noodles is here, the O-Dog is here. Eric Staal will be with us in about 5 minutes, who played on a line with Sidney Crosby back in 2010 in Vancouver, which, of course, resulted in Canada winning gold. I think it was Staal, Crosby, Iginla, if I'm not mistaken, back in 2010, and it's a hell of a top line all these years later. Somehow Crosby, 15 years later, is racking up 3 assists in the Four Nations face-off, playing with MacKinnon and Stone. And
you wonder what he's going to do, AK, when this is over. Like, is he just going to have some type of surgery or something and say, that's check, please, season's over? Or like what?
Wow, I don't know. I mean,
looks pretty healthy to me after last night.
He looked healthy. I think, this is his Stanley Cup playoffs. This is his Stanley Cup.
Never know, Noodles, because I'm going to present a scenario that might be interesting and fascinating too.
I know what you're thinking already.
This is what I saw when I was a member of the Hartford Whalers. Brendan Shanahan left, played on a line, and played a bunch of shifts with Steve Yzerman. And I think Steve Yzerman really enjoyed himself.
Yeah.
Went back to Detroit, talked to Kenny Holland, and said, maybe you need to call Hartford and get Brendan Shanahan out of Hartford. Shanny came back for 2 days, and then he got on the private bird and went to Detroit. Maybe this is one of those things where they both go back to their teams, and it's like, Colorado, maybe you want to get this guy. Maybe you want to get this guy.
Yeah, I mean, you could see that. I mean, we're starting, a rumor or whatever connecting. But how could you not deny it? Like, how could you not, if you're Sidney Crosby?
They're playing on the same line.
And they're best buddies. They trained together. You saw them getting interviewed. I thought the interview was hilarious and funny, talking about how competitive they are. To me, there are a lot of overlaps. And you could certainly tie it to him, wanting to chase a Stanley Cup with his buddy. I mean, man, oh man, would that be. You talk about the Rantanen trade. That would be full circle going, okay, Nate, we're going to trade out your right winger, you're one of your best friends that you've won a Stanley Cup with for the last 9 years, for your mentor and best buddy. I mean, that would be icing on, or a cherry on top. But again, that's just conjecture.
For sure. But I don't think that the idea of conjecture would apply to the reality that everybody who's a hockey fan would love to see him at a Pittsburgh. I'm sure there's some Penguins fans who are still holding on to some hope that Kyle Dubas can turn this around. But if you're a hockey fan, you want to see Crosby playing with a real team.
It's 2 years of Pittsburgh just going down the tubes and playing meaningless games.
Exactly.
So who the hell wants to see him fizzle out like that? I don't.
No one does. No one should. But Crosby, it's his choice. And at least to this point, that's the choice he's made. And I totally would implore Crosby to look at the Brendan Shanahan model that you mentioned, and embrace that. For the sake of the sport, because we need to be seeing Sidney Crosby in huge moments like last night. And it sucks that when this tournament is over, he's going back to Pittsburgh and playing on Tuesday night in a meaningless game against New Jersey, as opposed to being in a playoff hunt or
Raymond
the
Bourque,
Stanley Cup
took
playoffs.
him a long time. It took Raymond Bourque a long time, and then he just finally said, I've been loyal to the Bruins. I wanted to finish up as a Bruin, but I got to go chase it. And he did, and it was worth it. So, I don't know. You got to respect the guy for loving Pittsburgh. Probably I don't know. Pittsburgh has been everything to him. Yeah. That's where he's grown up. That's where he's won cups. And that's where he's become Sidney Crosby, one of the greatest players that's ever played. But, I don't know. You just get to a point where you got to be looking at it saying, do I want, when people are just, and I don't know how much he thinks about his legacy or how it's mentioned, but to think of him just being on a team that gets dummied all the time and they're losing and not making the playoffs, because I would imagine that they're going to be out of it relatively early.
They already are. I mean, look at the standings now.
Technically, yeah. By Johnny always does the math, and he says if you're that many points and you got to leap that many teams, you're screwed. You're done and you're out.
Yeah, I mean, they're
who wants to see him play these games coming down the stretch? It's like, I don't know.
The thing is, they're only 6 points out. That's the crazy thing. They're 6 points out of a playoff spot.
And they got to leap 6 teams.
They do. You're right. But if you put him up against, let's just say, Pittsburgh versus Montreal, would you take Pittsburgh right now on paper?
Jamie, before we get into who you're going to take, who's below them? Buffalo.
No, Buffalo and Philly. But
Philly's below them too.
Well, no, sorry. Philly is exactly tied with them. Tied. But what I'm saying is Montreal's tied with them too.
Yeah, because I always think, you can bring the positive, which is like, they're only 6 points out. But the negative is they're just ahead of Buffalo, and Buffalo is really out of it.
Well, yeah, they're 6 points up on Buffalo, and they're 6 points behind Detroit. Like, that's the thing. You in their mind, they're going, if we go 8-2, we can make up 3 or 4 of those points. So now all of a sudden you're there. I listen, I'm just making an excuse for it. Would I like to see all hell break loose in the National Hockey League and top players move? Absolutely. But I know, listen, Kyle Dubas is there. Kyle Dubas is on management for Team Canada. So he's there with Sid. Like, he's in the building, and guaranteed if MacKinnon goes to him, hey, try and get my buddy there. Like, it is be an awkward conversation.
For sure. And I understand why the MacKinnon thing is always brought up. Colorado's always brought up as a potential destination for Sidney Crosby. But there will be a bunch of top teams around the league that'll be trying to get in there as well. I think everybody, if you're a contender in the NHL, will make a pitch for Crosby if it ever comes to that. But I don't know. We'll ask Pierre LeBrun what he thinks about that when he joins us in just over an hour. Joining us now on the Maple Toyota Hotline, a former teammate of Sidney Crosby at the Olympic Games, a former teammate of yours as well. O-Dog, we have Stanley Cup champ, Olympic gold medalist Eric Staal here on OverDrive. Eric, what's going on?
Doogie sleeping at the wheel again.
Press the wrong button.
That's too bad. That's too bad.
From head completely up his ass. And
maybe he was offended by our Sidney Crosby being traded talk. I don't know.
Doubt it. I think Eric, you know what? I guarantee you that they pressed the wrong button and cut him off or something like that. Or maybe we kept him waiting too long and he's like,
no, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad. By the way, I've been spending a lot of time with Doogie here the last couple of days. What a treat. You guys are very fortunate.
What do you think of the
Great
cologne?
guy. The cologne, it's potent. It's potent.
Dude.
It is potent. Great guy, though. Great kid. Big fan of young Dukes. We will have Eric Staal joining us in just a second. But the Crosby stats, I mean, 22 straight wins internationally as the captain of Team Canada.
Crazy.
It is totally nuts. 26 wins in a row. And I don't know if that is in danger. Well, I think it definitely is in danger on Saturday night against the Americans. But we'll have to wait for that.
Now, you do see this. Like, Mike Kelly's a good friend of mine. He's Sportlogic analytic, and he on paper has the Americans as the kind of the favorite, the best players. But I look at it and we'll ask Eric Staal if he believes Canada can get it done, because it's certainly, he's been there and done that.
He has. He beat the Americans alongside Sid and many others back in 2010 in Vancouver. And Eric Staal with us now, hopefully on OverDrive. Eric, are you with us?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Harry, we got you. We got you.
Here we go.
Got you. I love it. Were you tuned in last night to see your old line mate Sid do his thing in Montreal?
I tuned in for the opening power play goal. My middle son, he's 13, and they had a game at 7:30. So I left the little gathering I was at right before their game started, and so I watched actually just the first power play goal, and then I immediately left and got to his game in time. And then I watched the third period, but I got home. So I watched what I needed to see right off the bat. I figured PP1 would be pretty good, and it looked pretty solid in the first 12 seconds. Scored a goal, so it was fun to see, and just. Great to see that kind of best on best hockey again, and and just the guys that are the top players in the league, to get to see them play together is fun for fans, and fun for me even watching last night. So good start, but they got a few more left.
Stolly, we've been praising Sid, rightfully so. He had 3 assists last night, and he's informed everybody about how much this tournament meant to him. You got to play on his line in the Olympics. What is the one thing that you saw that makes Sid go and kind of separates himself from everyone else?
Well, I mean, I think it's obviously extreme high IQ and smarts, but then to go along with it, it's just his tenacity, his intensity on the puck. He's actually I found pretty easy to play with. I mean, he's a give and go kind of guy, but he's a guy that is really, really good down low in the kind of the gritty, dirty areas and around that net. I mean, obviously puck skills, skate skills, and he's got all the other tools, but that tight, gritty game when it's a high competitive environment, he just thrives. And that was 15 years ago. I played on his line, and he's still out there, with the best right now in their prime. So super fun, super cool to watch and see, but also not surprised. The guy puts in so much time and effort into his craft, and to be who he's been for the last 20 years, and to see it still on display is super impressive and fun to watch. So credit to him and the time he's put in and the effort that he puts forth every single day to be at his best. But it's fun to watch as a fan, for sure.
So, Eric, coming into these short tournaments, how tough was it for you and other players to develop chemistry right away with your line mates, guys that you certainly know and have played against and respect, but, to drop the puck and get going and develop that chemistry? How tough is that to do?
Yeah, not easy. Not as easy as you'd think. Obviously, you want as much time as you can, but in those short tournaments, you really have to make sure your best game is in the game that you need it to be the best game in. I mean, whether that's the semifinal, quarterfinal, or a gold medal, I mean, you want to be peaking, obviously, in those elimination moments. And, fortunate at the Olympics and some of the World Championships, those tournaments are a little longer where you can kind of get a little bit of a feel-out process. I think a lot more of the onus is going to be on the staff. I mean, the coaches, if it's not working and if you don't feel it, you either got to communicate with the guys as far as, hey, we need to change this up. What are you thinking? Or just make those moves and, make those changes, because it is so quick and it is short tournament and there's so many great players that at the end of the day, whoever you're putting out on the ice is going to be a great player. And it's, there's guys that are going to play less than normal, less than they're used to, but they got to, obviously perform when they're out there, and you got to try and find that balance. But it's not easy to do. It takes a lot of ego aside type guys to commit to just winning the game and winning what you need to have done. And that's kind of another part that's fun to watch when you're watching from the outside is seeing how that develops and whether it comes to fruition. And I think over the years, I mean, obviously it's been a while since there's been one of these tournaments, but that's I think the biggest thing that Canada's done so well is having guys that are willing to commit to overall team play, and that's what achieves success for sure.
Eric Staal, our guest here on OverDrive. You hear some of the younger players for Team Canada talk about Crosby and watching him in the room and watching his preparation before games, and you had already won a Stanley Cup by the time you suited up for Team Canada back in 2010, so you accomplished the ultimate goal. But when you leave a tournament like the Olympics, playing with some of the world's best, do you recall perhaps being able to take anything away from that tournament that you learned from some of your teammates, older or even younger?
I think everyone prepares differently. Everybody, prepares differently away from the rink even. I think it was just fun, even as a younger guy then, just, watching how everyone took care of themselves away from the rink, how they, approached every day, whether it was in the village or at practice or, just at meals. And then just, watching the pace and the intensity in practice. I mean, there's a ton of phenomenal hockey players, but there's little details and parts of everybody's game that they're always trying to get better at. Even the best in the world, they're doing extra shots after, they're doing little drills to get better in a certain area. And, when you're at an event like that, to be able to, see other guys do things, you kind of, learn to, hey, I see this guy doing that, and you're kind of picking up things as you go, and you're trying to, add them to your own repertoire because you're thinking the same thoughts. So, I think with Sid and with guys that have been through these things, the biggest thing is just the preparation. The biggest thing is just the continual work on their craft. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, especially to stay as long as he has and being at the level he's been at, is he's continually working to get better, whether it's nutrition, off ice, training, but even just puck stuff on the ice. I'm sure he's one of those guys that's fiddling around after practice, just shooting extra pucks, doing all those little things, but not overly taxing, but all details that matter in the game. And when you go to events like that, it's really fun to see those other guys because they're all the same. Kind of have that same thought and mentality that I'd like to think I had over my career, and that's what makes it great.
Staal, you have young kids playing in the States. I would imagine you're living in the States right now. Is that not correct?
Yeah, we're in Edina, Minnesota right now, so it's nice and cold. We got the outdoor rink going and all that fun stuff, but yeah, that's where we're at.
So the USA hockey program, I mean, it's been praised over the last several years as being a factory. What have you noticed about it where they're producing teams and young talent that is second to none? I mean, it's right there with Canada. What have you seen from your view?
Yeah, I mean, obviously in Minnesota where I'm at, it's about as close to, I feel like it's as being in Canada. And I'm not that far removed from Thunder Bay, Ontario. It's about a 6-hour drive. And for me, and ending up here, obviously it was later in my career we were here, and my kids started school here. So we just they started planting roots and buddies in school. And so we kind of ended up staying here. But the reasons we did are one, because of them and their school and sports, but we just enjoyed getting to know people. A lot of similar mindsets as far as approach to kids hockey, youth sports, and from what I've seen, there's just a lot of kids that play. A lot of people that enjoy the game and are passionate about it, and are always trying to get their kids involved. Obviously you run into, I'm sure it is in many other areas, you run into the people that maybe do a little too much, in my opinion, as far as youth hockey goes. I like to have some time off. We like to go back to our summer home up in Thunder Bay for most of July and a little bit of August. But, there are other people that are grinding away all summer. But I think it's important to take that time away, especially for the kids. You got to have, if your kid doesn't have a passion or a love or desire for the game, they're not going to make it. And I think that's the number one thing that I've noticed here. There's definitely a passion and love for the game, and I think that has continued to grow. And then they've got stars to look up to. There's so many great American players these kids have that are ahead of them. Matthews, obviously Kaner's still going, but they've got these stars they're not just great players. They are absolute stars in the league, and that's fun for these American kids to watch because they can dream to be the same. And there's definitely trending in that direction. There's a ton of great players that are moving up the ranks.
So is that when the coach sends you an email and says, Mr. Staal, make sure your son's at tryouts in July, and you write back and say, take a lap, you pigeon, we're not going, and we'll still be on the team? Is that how that transaction goes?
Yeah, it's kind of similar to that. Yes, I go find a hole to throw a line in the water and do some fishing. That's kind of where my thoughts are.
I gotta ask you as well, Stolly.
It's tough.
I gotta ask you. They can play hockey down in Florida, right? Like, why didn't you retire down in Florida? Did I not teach you anything, or what are we talking about here?
You are very correct. I hate to say, we didn't leave it up to the kids, but I actually said to my wife, I said, I'll go wherever. You've been kind of following me over 20 years. I'm like, I've been different spots, and I'm like, if you want to go wherever, I'm like, I'm good. I'll figure it out. I'll find a couple buddies, a golf course, and sports, and I'll be fine. So, and she really loved it in Minnesota when we came here. We ended up with a ton of great friends, kind of outside the game, and then obviously to drive back to Thunder Bay, where we're both from, it's only 6 hours. Her mom's still up there. My mom and dad are there in the summer. They're actually in Florida in the winter, so they do that well. But we ended up here, and it's just been a great fit for us to raise our kids and have that balance. So it's been good. But you're right, they do know how to play hockey in Florida. We experienced that as well for a year, and it was a blast.
I don't doubt it, man. I don't doubt. I wanted to congratulate you, Stolly, by the way, on your jersey retirement. I don't know. I must have got blocked from the email list, but I wanted to congratulate you. It looked like an awesome night.
Thanks, buddy. It was a special night, and a lot of close family and friends that we got to celebrate with. But it was kind of surreal, kind of all of it. But it was pretty cool for sure.
Love it. Thank you for doing this, Eric. We appreciate your time tonight.
All right, guys. Be good. Thank you.
All right. That's Eric Staal, who joined us on the Maple Toyota hotline. Count on Maple Toyota for the right winter tire package for your Toyota. Trade in your old tires. Buy a new set. Get $40 back. Visit mapletoyota.com.
He walked out on the ice, and he was shaking guys' hands that played 3 games with him. And they were like, great job. And I'm like...
He didn't seem surprised that you weren't invited. Like he didn't go, "Oh my God!" Like what happened there? Like he was
I
like,
don't know.
"Oh
I'm totally over it. I'm totally.
You're all
over
good.
it.
You're all good. But when he says he has an 13-year-old son, like you played with him when he was 18, 19, straight out of the O,
very
right?
first year.
Yeah. Like that must just
Google
blow your
Eric
mind.
Staal's first ever NHL goal in the TD Bank Arena, and you'll see an assist. AK, Joe from the bridge, try to find it.
I need to see this. Primary?
Joe from the bridge,
What
try
are we
to
talking
find
about?
Eric Staal's first NHL goal for me, please.
wow, that'd be great." You know what? And the thing is, you enjoy a handshake. I watched you on the Jay Show last night.
Noodles, I don't know why I did that. I was on Jay Onright's show, and it was over, and I looked at Jay, and I go, "Thanks a lot," and I shook his hand.
Shook his hand at the desk. It kind of caught him off guard. And then
I think it
"Hey,
did. I think he was like, "I've known this guy for 15 years, and he's shaking my hand after a hit." It was weird as I don't know why I did it.
You did the Hayes. You like because you do it to Hayes all the time. Like 500 here.
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
It's the funniest thing though. You reach across the desk and shake his hand.
I don't know. It was I was tired and I lost my mind a little bit, and I just shook his hand, and I'm like, I know he was thinking, "Why are you doing this?"
Yeah,
I'll
it
never
was
do
so
it
funny.
again, Jay. I'll
that
never
was
do it
great.
again.
It was great. I loved it.
Was Staal the last active NHL teammate you had? Like he retired a couple of years ago. He was with Florida when they went to the Cup final. They played Vegas. He must have been the last guy who you would have played with in the NHL. No,
Probably so. Yeah. Probably.
End of an era.
You know who mine was? Mark Giordano.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, for sure.
And Gio just retired. I mean, I don't know if he signed the papers. He's in unbelievable shape. Like, he could actually play for somebody at the deadline. But, I mean, Gio, I backed up in his first ever NHL game. It was here in Toronto. He played against the Leafs. We were in Calgary. Unbelievable.
That's wild.
Man, he's old. I guess I'm old, too. But
That's one.
like
You can
4
look at it
years
either
old.
way. You can look at it either way.
Yeah,
Joe from the
crazy.
Bridge is hard at work trying to find Eric Staal's first career NHL
you.
goal. I think we're going to
Such a
get
good
it. I think
goal.
we're going
All
to get it. We have role play level of concern still to come this hour. Pierre LeBrun will join us live from Montreal following Canada's 4-3 win over Sweden last night. Overdrive continues here on TSN 4, TSN 1050. Pierre LeBrun in 30 minutes from Montreal. We have role play level of concern coming up in mere moments. But Joe from the Bridge, hard at work behind the scenes, O-Dog, to find that dime you got over to Eric Staal for his first NHL goal. All right, here we go.
Here we go. Obviously, there's no sound.
Oh, look at that dangle from Eric
It was
Staal.
a great dangle. But was that you passing it up the middle to him?
I'm pretty sure. That wasn't his first NHL goal from the Bridge. That was the wrong one. Thanks for the effort.
Okay, that's
Way to work, Joe. Way to come out.
that looked like
Thanks for
Tim
coming out.
Thomas in goal for Boston there. Was it not?
Timmy
I don't
Thomas.
know.
Yeah,
was
that
Tim
guy
Thomas?
was an adventure in there, man. He looked like he looked like a beer league goalie, but man, that guy was good.
Well, he had the
Like-
weird cage.
Oh,
That's what
the
it was.
cage threw me off. Do you remember
could
how
see his-
goofy his setup was in Florida, Jamie, when he
Wow,
signed in Florida?
the
He had
colors.
red pads, or no, he had like some kind of black mask, and it was just it looked like Artur Zerbe in that. It was insane.
ridiculous. And then he went, I think, to Dallas too. Same thing. Like his colors didn't match.
Yes.
And the weird thing is he didn't have a mask. He had a helmet with a cage, but you could see his full face. And he wasn't
and
a guy
his
who was in
chin,
great,
and it was
yeah.
just like, what the hell is that?
But he arguably, if you go back, had one of the greatest 18-month stretches as a goaltender in the history of the game.
I'm fully aware of it. Like what did it?
but-
World Championships or
Yeah, look, but I'm
leading
talking
into the Cup.
Stanley Cup, Vezina, Conn Smythe. Like I think he had it all. Like, I'm not 100% sure what it was, but it was like this guy had a run. And I remember Edmonton brought him to camp as like a 30-year-old. Because the weirdest part about it, I'd never heard of him. And Mika Kiprasov and I were sitting there and saw him on TV. And Kipper goes, I know who that guy is. Because for 4 years, he was the best goaltender in Finland. And he's like, that guy's unbelievable. He's been in Finland for 4 years. I'm like, I never even heard of him. And then all of a sudden, he's the best goalie in the league. Like, ridiculous
I
run.
think he spent time in the East Coast Hockey League. Like he was in the East Coast.
It was just such a weird. And the thing is he wasn't known as like the best guy in the world, but they tolerated him, I think, because he was such an amazing goaltender.
Yep.
But the minute that the wheels fell off, that was it. He was gone.
Yeah.
Gone. Like the league just flushed him out. And he took a year off. Remember, he took a year off and then came back and played for Florida and Dallas. That's what it was. Like, the guy was, I think he was very political, and people were talking that he buried himself in a bunker or something. Like, he was a weird dude. But, man, was he good. Like,
he had that stretch from 2009, 2010, 2011 where he was as good as it gets when it comes to goaltending in the NHL. It was definitely something special. All right, let's get to role play level of concern, boys.
You can never ask me to stop drinking. Do you understand?
I do. I really do.
I should mention that last Friday night, I saw Stephen Caldwell at an event, Motion Ball, in support of Special Olympics, and he and I had ourselves a time. We had a great time. I love Stephen Caldwell, and JP, I'm hoping you could just play the drop for me because I have an immense amount of respect for that man. We'll get to it in just a second.
A couple of whiskeys and 5 or 6 beers.
Yeah, that was.
Did you have a couple of whiskeys and?
Did we ever?
Dude, that he's a machine.
He is a machine.
He's the best.
He is.
I asked him.
Best.
I asked him if he knew what was going on this show with the drop, and he's like, he just. I'm not going to do the accent, but I said, yeah, people keep telling me about it, but I actually haven't seen it. So I did message him to let him know that it was coming up here today. So hopefully Stephen Caldwell, our good friend, is tuned in. You know how it works. We read out a situation, a person, a place, and we determine the level of concern for that person. And, O-Dog, you're starting out and you're playing the role of Doug Armstrong and Don Sweeney, the architects of Team Canada at the Four Nations. What is your level of concern that Shea Theodore's absence could be a huge detriment to your chances of winning the tournament?
Pint on the patio. It's a cool 1 beer at lunch. And the reason is because if you look at the ice time from last night, right at the top, you got 28 minutes, and that guy's name is Cale Makar.
Yeah.
So I'm throwing Cale Makar and Taze out there for 28 minutes a night, and everyone else just has to do cleanup control and keep things under wraps. So that's be physical, get pucks in and out, and obviously you can't contribute to offense if you get the opportunity because you're that good. But there's some guys back there that can step up their game. I didn't love everybody's game yesterday, but the main reason is you're talking about the 2 guys that are going out there the most, and that's a lot. Half the game, Cale Makar is on the ice for you, and everyone else just has to be solid, and they're more than capable of doing that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's when you take a look at that D-core, I think it runs through Makar and Taves. And, Parayko, I didn't think had his best last night. He got a couple blunders in the
Drew Doughty, I don't think had his best either, Jamie. I think he would tell you that.
Yeah, but you know what? I think he was a little bit overwhelmed by the speed. Like, everyone's talking about the speed. Like, he's never been a burner. He's always been really smart with the puck. So I think he'll just have to adjust. But I agree. I think it's Makar and Taze, and then everybody else just does a little bit of cleanup.
Yeah, and Travis Sanheim will slot in for Theodore, and he's been really good for Philadelphia. We had Patrick Sharp on yesterday, was talking about how great a season that Travis Sanheim is having. All right, Noodles, you're playing the role of Adin Hill and Samuel Montembeault. What is your level of concern that you may not see the net at all during this tournament? Binnington only for Canada.
It's Rick Bushwood.
6 Bush Light, 6 Bud Light, and I love them, tall boys.
Because I think, Binnington, to me, last night proved to everybody that he's a gamer and made some saves when you needed him. Now, that could change. If he gets blown out on Saturday night, then you will see maybe potentially a change. But, maybe it's a scenario where they just come right back with him and say, we've seen you do it before. We know that you can bounce back. But I thought when they needed him most, he was there for them. And I think that's what they've been relying on. So I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm not, Nick Cage and I'm not at the bottom there, Stevie Caldwell, which is just a social drink. But Rick Bushwood right in the middle because, there is potential. But I think Binnington bought himself some good faith last night.
If Canada were to win in regulation on Saturday against the States, I would think it would be quite likely you would see one of those guys. No, in that you're pretty much locked up to go to the final. I guess depending on how the next couple of days go for the States and for Sweden. 5 points could very well clinch you a spot. Like, let's say Sweden is shut out by the Americans in regulation and Finland doesn't do anything in this tournament, then the third game might not actually mean anything on Monday afternoon. In theory.
I hear you. You know what? That's a great point, and I didn't take that into consideration, that if they end up winning in regulation, then they pretty much have cemented themselves an opportunity to get into so that's where they might give one of the other guys an opportunity to play. But I don't know. I think it's 4 games, short tournament, spaced out. I mean, they're probably going to run one guy.
It's possible, and that is very much a possibility. They might just say, Binnington, you're playing all the way through. Monday against Finland, and whoever you play in the final on Thursday, 1 week from tonight. I am playing the role of Toronto Blue Jays fans. What is my level of concern that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has not yet signed a contract extension with the self-imposed deadline coming on Monday? Play it.
You can never ask me to stop drinking.
You're not buying this self-imposed deadline, oh?
Dude, here's my thing, man. And it's taken me a while to get to this point, but I've been around doing this job for long enough where it's like, oh, Vladdy doesn't sign? The worst approach you can have is, how are we ever going to get on if that guy leaves? And you can't treat it like that. Who cares if Vladimir Guerrero leaves the Blue Jays? What have they done with him?
Well, at least they've been competitive with
That's
him.
fine.
The idea
That's fine.
of I think the concern more so than not signing Vladdy would be losing him for nothing.
Okay, but I just think you're a turkey if you're going to hold the position and let a player say, nobody wants to sign here, I'm your franchise player, so I'm going to hold you over a barrel, and you better give me what I want, and if you just capitulate and give them money, I think it's an insanely stupid move.
I totally understand. So if that's the case, how are you going into this season if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, where expectations are not overly high? So if you go in and you're in the playoff hunt and all of a sudden the trade deadline's coming around, you have Vlad and Bo on expiring deals, both of whom who could leave as pending free agents.
Dude,
how do you handle that?
Dude, you're not winning the World Series anyway. What they squeaked in for the last 2 or 3 years, and they get dummied in those little 3-game series. This core and Vladdy and Bo was supposed to be kind of what took this group forward, and they've proved that whether they're not good enough or they haven't put good enough people around them. I could care less if both of them walked, both of them out the same door. It
could happen. It could very well happen, and you hope.
And I could care less,
because you do have to hope that they get something in return to restock that farm system. If that's how it goes, that's how it goes. You can't sign the guys, then you need to make a move. The worst thing you can do is hold on and try to trick yourself into thinking you're an actual World Series contender, which Mark Shapiro did say last year. Championship caliber roster. That's what we expect in 2025.
Dude, he'll probably say the same thing again. And you talk about trade value. What if both of them are terrible and the offense just isn't there? And what do you think you're getting for them then? There's a reason why that they have not locked this guy up. Probably both of them. They see something that they just don't want to commit to it. I don't know if it's the fitness level, the total overall commitment to baseball and conditioning. I don't know. But you would think if they, like every other team in Major League Baseball, they get a young stud like this, a cornerstone piece of the organization. They're locked up years ago to it. Acuna Jr. in Atlanta, I always refer to him. They love the talent, and they locked him up for $100 million, and everybody thought that they were nuts at the time. That is the best deal in baseball right now, paying that guy $10 million a year.
Yeah, it's a disgusting steal. That shouldn't be allowed. It's an unbelievable deal.
So if it gets to the deadline and the deadline passes, AK, I could care less. They can both walk out the door. They don't win anything with them, so what's the value? Obviously, they sell jerseys, and people go to the ballpark to see Vladdy, but I don't know.
My only question is, are they better today than they were at the end of the season last year?
They are. They're definitely better today, but I think the question is about the division, which I think has really improved as well. Boston is nasty this year. They just signed Bregman. They're really good. The Yankees are going to be really good. I know Soto's out the door, but they did a good job of replacing him. Baltimore is really good. So that's 3 teams that
You
are
haven't
very
even mentioned
likely.
Tampa. Tampa was garbage last year.
Right.
And they'll find some way after signing no one and paying a bunch of guys $750,000. They might lead the division because that's what they do.
Surprise me. You're right. One team I don't think will be leading any division in 2025 is the New York Jets. And you're playing the role of Aaron Rodgers, who was essentially said, all right, see you later by the Jets today officially. What is your level of concern as Aaron Rodgers that your time in the National Football League is over?
Again, you got me at a pint on the patio because there's a bunch of dum-dums in pro sports, and somebody is going to look at him, some terrible team with brutal quarterbacking. Maybe it's the New Orleans Saints, man. I don't know. Someone's going to look at him and say, maybe if we take a shot on that guy, and they have full understanding of what kind of personality and baggage is coming into the organization, but I guarantee you somebody will do it. Somebody will do it.
I could see Pittsburgh potentially replacing
You think
Russell
Mike
Wilson.
Tomlin wants to put up with Aaron Rodgers?
I don't, but I also think Mike Tomlin wants to win, and they haven't won a playoff game since 2016. I'm not sure Rodgers is an improvement on Russell Wilson, but ultimately the team that I think brings in Rodgers is the Las Vegas Raiders. Tom Brady, Pete Carroll, they have no quarterback there in Vegas. They're looking to make a big splash. They draft 6th overall. Maybe they take Shadur Sanders, bring in Rodgers to be his mentor, which I'm sure would go very well.
Why would you want him mentoring anyone?
Well, mentor
and he
Jordan
might be
Love.
Who knows what the personality, because things can come across differently on TV and what he says he does and likes and his thoughts and beliefs. But why would you want that personality around? I don't know. I think after the Achilles and the way he performed this year, I don't understand why he doesn't step away. But he wants to play. He wants to play.
I think in his mind, he just there are things, and Luke would argue for him, saying his numbers weren't as bad as, the win-loss, all of that type of stuff. I think in his mind, he just believes he can help a team, and he still has game left. And guys like that, I don't know. I don't think they fade into the sunset. I feel like they are told to go away. I feel like he is going to play until he can't play anymore, and maybe try and go out, on top instead of the way it ended this year. I think that would chap his ass. And if he was done after this past season, I think he wants at least one do-over to see if he can get it done.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he will be somewhere, and I think it's going to be a soap opera once again, like it was the last couple of years with the Jets. All right, Noodles, you're playing the role of Team Finland. What is your level of concern that you will not record a single point in the Four Nations face-off?
I don't know. I've been saying this all along.
That reeks of a Stevie Caldwell.
Well, let's do Stevie Caldwell right now.
A couple of whiskeys and 5 or 6 beers.
But then
I
I'm
love
also
him so much.
I'm going to throw in a Rick Bushwood as well. Maybe
6
double.
Bush Light, 6 Bud Light, and I love them, tall boys.
Big night.
Because I think what's happened is their coach has probably put up on the bulletin board or whatever, somewhere in the room, showing them a video of everyone just counting them out. No chance for Finland. Yeah, they're going to, exactly. It's a video of Brian Hayes going, they're brutal.
Nobody cares what someone in Finland thinks.
Exactly. It's literally Hayes just going, they're brutal. They can't win one game. And to me, I think you can't sleep on Finland. Last night, everyone's like, Canada's going to win it. And all of a sudden, it kind of got a little bit dicey. To me, I think Finland can win a game here. I don't know against who, but I think they can. And I think people are sleeping on them. So that's where I think they might be scared to play a little bit, but ultimately they might get some points.
Noodles, I hate to disagree with you. I think Finland is going to get absolutely slaughtered tonight by the Americans. I could see 8-0. Honestly, look at their defense. They don't
but you said that through the tournament, not
You're right.
One
You're right.
game.
I guess maybe they could take a point off Sweden, but their defense, I think you could argue Lindell, Mikkola, Vakanainen, Matin, Palo, Mata, Yoki Harju is worse than any NHL defense.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
dude, all you got to do is hack and whack and just absolutely be physical and gritty. They're not exactly Paul Coffey's back there.
No,
I do understand
not.
that. It's hack and whack time and be tough to play against.
UC Saros is starting for Finland.
Okay,
you don't think Saros could steal you a game? I think he could.
Yeah, he might be like that. You talk about a guy who needs something. We talk about Sid playing on a bottom feeder team. UC Saros is playing on a team that is, third last in the National Hockey League right now?
Terrible.
Which is, the weirdest one this season for me. But, I mean, Saros is a hell of a player. To me, I don't know. I just can't sleep on this Finnish team. All of a sudden, Sebastian Aho has a game. Patrick Laine rips in. Like O said, what if the USA starts being heroes and hitting guys and taking penalties, and it's a 5-on-3 and Laine rips home 2? All of a sudden, it gets a little tighter around there. What if Connor Hellebuck...
Crowd's going to be on Finland's side. They hate the U.S. You never know. It could be a greasy game tonight.
It could be.
I'm calling the mini Jerry's on an upset 10%.
Oh, very bold. It's very bold. I thought you were going to say 40%, even higher.
I'll go 25.
Okay,
mini
there
Jerry,
you go.
25.
Mini Jerry's 25% on the upset tonight. That game at 8 o'clock. Canada will play the Americans Saturday night in a game I simply cannot wait for. That's going to be a special one. It really doesn't get much better than Saturday night. Canada-USA, best on best, and we're getting it. Coming up in just about 48 hours. Pierre LeBrun in about 15 minutes. Maybe some more role play level of concerns in hour 3. This is hour 2 of Overdrive here on TSN 4 and on TSN 1050. Overdrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. Korolnek, McLennan, O'Neill, and our boy Joe from the Bridge has been hard at work digging into the archives here at TSN. We're going back to October 23rd, 2003. This silky pass. There it is. Oh,
there you go.
What a feed. Oh, wow. Man.
Yeah, like Eric Staal's first goal. Yeah, it was very good.
That was a beauty.
Still couldn't get an invite to his jersey retirement. Guys that played 3 games with him total were like, great job, brother. Great
Sammy Kapanen in there, or whatever that guy's name, Sammy Kapanen, would he been there?
I don't know. Maybe not even a quick little text, but I'm over it. And
it's all good.
That's where it stands.
You got bigger and better things to do. Andrew Raycroft was in goal for that. Right there. So,
a guy that
Razor.
Very good friends.
We love
with
Razor.
Toronto.
We love Razor.
Yeah. Everyone good always guy. Says like, "Oh, Tuukka Rask, this and that." And I'm like, I got to be friends with Andrew Raycroft, and I'll take that over Tuukka Rask anytime. Just an amazing guy, like a really good guy.
Hey, I love that guy. He's funny too. I mean, he's funny on Twitter. Like he'll make a comment here or there, and I mean, he was invested in the tournament. I saw him tweet last night. You have to be. Last night, I think it drew a lot of people in. The league has to be happy with the amount of intensity and the way they played last night. And to me, it just, I know it's a moneymaker and all of that type of stuff, but I thought it was a good showing
amazing,
for Game
Jamie.
1.
And that's what I thought throughout the night. I'm like, what was going on behind the scenes? And it's usually money somewhere along the lines, or owners saying, I don't want my players getting hurt or going there. I don't know, but to deprive hockey fans of that kind of action, and even the players, like McDavid's comments, he was like, I've had to wait 10 years for that. Nathan MacKinnon's face when he scored that goal, you could tell he was saying, I've waited 10 years for that pass.
Yeah.
If not
10
longer.
years.
No, it was an incredible moment, and I think you're absolutely spot on, Noodles. Last night, I think, exceeded even the biggest aspirations and ambitions for Bettman and Marty Walsh, the NHL, the NHLPA, who are the ones who put this tournament on. It was incredible. And you talk about momentum heading into Saturday, and I know, you'll be in the building. Like, I've had buddies like, hey, maybe we should go down to Montreal for the weekend and try to get tickets for this game. What are we doing Saturday night? It's appointment viewing now, and I wasn't sure if it was ever going to get to that. But Saturday, like, I can guarantee you, if you're a sports fan in this country, you are watching Canada, USA, and I wasn't sure that was going to be the case 3 weeks ago. But it is an undeniable fact. That's happening Saturday night, and it's going to be exquisite.
I agree.
Yeah, it's going to be unbelievable. I can't imagine the feeling like just going to the rink early, and I always love the vibe in that building. At the exhibition game, I love the vibe. Like any of my friends, any of my family that went to the Bell Center, like they would always go there for warm-up just to get a taste of that vibe.
Yep.
And it's second to none. It's just got a different feel to it, and it's hard to even really explain. All NHL buildings, they kind of all look the same, but that one's definitely different.
Yeah, and you know what? Like I thought about it last night. what would the crowd be like if it was in Toronto? Toronto's taken a lot of heat recently, right? The atmosphere of the building, a little quieter, all of that.
People are starting to call it like the corporates. They're like the corporates. We hate them.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, it is a quieter building as far as, on a Tuesday night against November against a team that maybe isn't a huge rivalry. It is a little quieter. It is more corporate, closer down to the ice. You do see empty seats because people are in that VIP club having a drink and then coming out, and it is just a different dynamic. But I thought Montreal, that opening night, that was brilliant last night. They nailed it out of the park. The league did. Yeah,
it was perfect. And again, having Mario Lemieux come out there was a great touch. The way they introduced everything in the 25-minute ceremony or whatever. I mean, you could start the game at 8:00. You could start the ceremony at 7:40. No, seems pretty reasonable to me.
Dude, I don't understand that. Be in your seats at 7:40. Yeah. Puck drops at 8, folks. Sure. We're on a tight timeline. It's not 8:25. It's not 8:27. It's dropping at 8.
I would love that. I think everybody would love that. Safe travels to Montreal, buddy.
Guys, it's been a lot of fun. AK, it's been a pleasure doing business with you, bud.
Nice. Likewise. Hopefully an invite out to Weston once the summer hits, and I promise not to kill you.
I don't know if that's going to happen, but I can't wait to see you on the CFL panel. Bud.
CFL panel, coming very soon. June, not far away. That's the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill. It's Jamie McLennan, who'll be with me for the final hour. I'm Aaron Korolnek, and for Brian Hayes. Hour 3 is next.